Hello, boys and girls. This is Making Connections Part
Part
2. We learned earlier today about what connections are and why we should make connections. So now we're going to practice making connections as we read.
And we're going to practice with one of our favorite books that we have been reading together in 3rd grade for several years now. Miss Taylor, and our books are about to fall apart because they're
mine's
so
kinda
well loved.
stained.
But this book is called The World According to Humphrey, and we're going to read hopefully a little bit every day out of Humphrey and use it in our reading lessons these first couple of weeks for sure.
So, Miss Milam, The World According to Humphrey by Betty G. Burney. When I look, boys and girls, at the cover, you can see what kind of character Humphrey is. We're going to be doing something in 3rd grade that Miss Milam and I like to call partner reading.
Sorry.
We take turns reading with each other, and then we stop and we talk about what we read, because reading is much more than just saying words.
Yes.
It's what's going on in your
You have
mind.
to think something, and if we were all here in person, we would be doing something called Say Something. We would read a little, we'd stop, we'd say something about what we read, just so that we were understanding what was happening in the text. But good readers think something as they're reading, so that's what we're going to model our thinking out loud.
Right. So chapter 1 is entitled The Return of Mrs. Brisbane.
Today was the worst day of my life. Miss Mack left room 26 a Longfellow School for good. And that's bad. Worse yet, Miss Brisbane came back. Until today, I didn't even know there was a Mrs. Brisbane. Lucky me. Now I want to know, what was Miss Mack thinking? She must have known that soon she'd be leaving without me, and that Mrs. Brisbane would come back to room 26 and I'd be stuck with her. I still love Miss Mack more than any human or hamster on earth, but what was she thinking? You can learn a lot about yourself by taking care of another species, she told me on the way home the day she got me. You'll teach those kids a thing or two. That's what she was thinking. I don't think she was thinking very clearly. I'm never going to squeak to her again. Of course, I'm probably never going to see her again because she's gone, gone, gone. But if she comes back, I'm not even going to look at her. Stop. Miss Taylor, who's doing the talking in this story? Who do you think is talking?
Well, Miss Milam, based on the cover, I'm going to assume that this hamster is Humphrey. And I think Humphrey is doing the talking. One clue is it says, I'm never going to squeak to her again.
Play on words.
Hamsters would squeak instead of speak. And it talks about her getting me. And
So, it's almost
more
a
than any
connection.
human or hamster on Earth. So I'm pretty sure that that Humphrey, the hamster, is talking.
Okay. Have you made any connections so far?
Well, the one thing I could think about right in the very beginning, I could make a text-to-self connection. When I was in 3rd grade, just like you, we had a student teacher in my classroom, and I remember the day that she left. We had a going-away party for her, presents and whatever, and we got to have an extra long recess, and she wrote us all poems. I still have mine, and we all cried. And I think I felt sad, like Humphrey feels sad because Miss Mack is leaving, and I think Miss Mack was his teacher or his owner, but also the
he
teacher.
got her, yes.
And so I think he's sad about that. That's my text to self connection.
Okay.
Okay, let's go to the next page. I know that last sentence doesn't make sense. It's hard to make sense when your heart is broken. On the other hand, until Mrs. Mack arrived, I was going nowhere down at the Petorama. My days were spent sitting around looking at a bunch of furry things in cages just like mine. We were treated all right. Regular meals, clean cages, music piped in all day. Over the music, Carl, the store clerk, would answer on the phone. Open 9 to 9, 7 days a week, corner of 5th and Adler, next to the Dairy Maid. Back then, I feared I'd never see the Dairy Maid. I lost my spot, Miss Milam. I feared I'd never see 5th and Adler, much less the Dairy Maid. Sometimes I'd see human eyes and noses, not always as clean as they should be, poking up against the glass. Nothing ever came of it. The children were excited to see me, but the parents usually had other ideas. Oh, come see the fishes, Cornelia. So colorful and so much easier to care for than a hamster, Mama might say. Or no, Norbert. They have the cutest little puppies over here. After all, a dog is a boy's best friend. So there we were, hamsters, gerbils, mice, and guinea pigs. Not nearly as popular as the fish, cats, or dogs. I suspected that I'd be spinning my wheel at the Petorama forever. But once Miss Mack carried me out the door 6 short weeks ago, my life changed fast. I saw Fifth, I saw Adler, I saw the Dairy Maid with the same statue of a cow in an apron outside.
I just had a connection.
You did? What was it?
Well, you know, sometimes I go to Clarksville, and when I'm driving down to go to Clarksville, I go through Guthrie. And I know the purple elephant or pink elephant is still there, but there used to be a cow, statue of a cow with sunglasses. So it made me connect to the statue of a cow there in Guthrie.
Good. Miss Milam, I connected, remember, to the year that we took our 3rd graders on a field trip to the pet store?
I did too. I thought about that, and I could see the cages and
the different animals there.
Absolutely.
So I connected to that as well. Okay, you read.
I was dozing when she first came to Petorama, as I do during the day, because hamsters are more active at night. Hello, a warm voice awakened me. When I opened my eyes, I saw a mass of bouncy black curls, a big happy smile, huge dark eyes. She smelled of apples. It was love at first sight. Aren't you the bright-eyed one? She asked me. And might I return the compliment? I replied. Of course, it came out as squeak, 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 as usual. Miss Mack opened up her purse with the big pink and blue flowers on it. I'll take him, she told Carl. He's obviously the most intelligent and handsome hamster you have. Carl grunted. Then Miss Mack picked out a respectable cage. Okay, not the 3-story pagoda I had my eye on, but it was a nice cage. And soon, amid squeals of encouragement from my friends in the small pet department, from the teeniest white mouse to the lumbering chinchilla, I left Petorama with high hopes. We sped down the street in Miss Mack's bright yellow car. She called it a bug, but I could see it was really a car. Taylor, do you have a connection? Wonder why she called it a bug.
Oh, Miss Milam, it's a Volkswagen bug. Did you ever do slug bugs?
Yes.
That's the kind of car it was.
Okay, so now I've got a connection, and now I see the car in
And
my
now
head.
do you understand why?
Yes. She carried my cage up the stairs to her apartment. We ate apples. We watched TV. She let me run around outside my cage. She gave me my very own name, Humphrey. And she told me all about room 26, where we'd be going the next morning. And since you are an intelligent hamster who is going to school, I have a present for you, Humphrey, she said.
Then she gave me a tiny little notebook and a tiny little pencil. I got these for you at the doll shop, she explained. Then she tucked them behind my mirror where no one could see them except me. Of course, it might be a while before you learn to read and write, she continued. But you're smart, and I know you'll catch on fast. Little did she know I could already make out some words from my long, boring days at Petorama. Words like chew toys, kibble, pooper, scooper. Remember, a hamster is grown up at about 5 weeks old. So if I could learn all the skills I need for life in 5 weeks, how long could it possibly take to learn to read? I'll tell you, a week. Yep, in a week. I could read and write, even a little with my tiny little pencil.
Did you make any text-to-text connections?
I did, Miss Mallow. I made a couple of text-to-text connections.
I did too. One I made was to a story we're going to read later in the year.
I made that
and
same
I'm not going to
connection.
give much away there, but when they were describing the pet shop, I connected to Because of Winn-Dixie that we'll read later in 3rd grade. But I made that one. Is there another one?
I thought about 2 others.
Okay.
I thought I did another text-to-text connection with the book we read last year.
Okay.
Do you remember when we read Charlotte's Web?
Yes.
And they were writing those words in the web.
Yes.
Those animals had to be able to read
They
words
were intelligent. Yes. Yes.
And then it reminds me also of the Ralph S. Mouse books, because Ralph the mouse goes to school and he learns at school as well. So those intelligent, smart animals.
We're going to show you real quick how we can add the connections that we made to this Padlet. You are going to log in to your Padlet, and we'll explain that here in just a minute. But Ms. Taylor's going to model.
I'm going to go over out of the screen and go to my computer, guys.
And you can see the screen, the smart board here. And I'm going to move this out of the way. And actually, I'm going to move my camera closer so you can see the board.
When you get to the Padlet, and it's just a link that's in this Google Classroom assignment, you're going to click the pink plus down here in the bottom right corner. When you pick that up and click it, it's going to ask for a title. This is, if you look over here in the left-hand corner, our Padlet is called Making Connections. It says post a connection you had to this chapter. So we already know that it's about making connections. My connection is going to be a text-to-text connection. So that's going to be my title.
So she's just going to type in text to text.
Text.
Now, if you're making a connection that's something that happened in your life, then you would write text to self. Miss Taylor's connection about her student-teacher leaving would have been text to self.
And if it would, Miss Milam's,
The cow with the sunglasses and Guthrie, text to world. That was somewhere else in my world.
so I've got text to text. I'm going to hit enter, go to a new line, and then I'm just going to say, this reminds me of Charlotte's Web. The animals were able to read, and Charlotte could write, just like Humphrey is learning to read and write.
Mhm.
I'm done making my connection, so I'm going to hit enter. Actually, I'm not going to hit enter. I'm just going to click off of it.
So
and I'm
she
done.
moved her mouse away from that
sticky note.
her sticky note. And then when the next person logs in, you'll see Miss Taylor's will already be there, and somebody else's, you will start a new sticky note and add yours. Everybody needs to add their own sticky note, then you can read your friends and go back and add a comment.
So you could comment, I thought of that too. You could connect to somebody else's connection as well. What we're going to do now is we're going to return the camera to our fancy tripod. And we are going to finish reading chapter 1. We like just a little bit, not much at all. And we'll have finished chapter 1. When we get done with chapter 1, then you'll get to go to the Padlet and make yours, okay?
In addition to schoolwork, I learned quite a bit about the other students in room 26, like lower your voice, AJ, and speak up, Saya, and wait for the bell, Garth, and Golden Miranda. Even after I found out her name is really Miranda Golden, I thought of her as Golden Miranda because of her long blonde hair. After all, I am a golden hamster.
Yes, life in room 26 suited me well during the day. My cage had all the comforts a hamster could ask for. I had bars on the windows to protect me from my enemies. I had a little sleeping house in one corner where no one could see or bother me. There was my wheel to spin on, and of course, a lovely pile of nesting material. My mirror came in handy to check my grooming and to hide my notebook. In one corner, I kept my food. The opposite corner was my bathroom area, because hamsters like to keep their poo away from their food. Who doesn't? All my needs were taken care of in one convenient cage.
At night, I went home from school with Miss Mack and we watched TV or listened to music. Sometimes Miss Mack played her bongo drums. She made a tunnel on the floor so I could race and wiggle to my hamster heart's content.
Oh, the memories of those 6 weeks with Morgan McNamara. That's her real name. But she told me her students like to call her Mrs. Mack. That's how nice she is, or was.
On the weekends, Miss Mack and I had all kinds of adventures. She put me in her shirt pocket right over her heart, just like in Ralph S. Mouse, and took me with her to the laundry room. She had friends over and they laughed and made a fuss over me. She even took me for a bike ride once. I could still feel the wind in my fur.
I didn't have an inkling until this morning of the unsqueakable thing she was about to do to me. On the way to work, she said, "Humphrey, I hate to tell you, but this is my last day in room 26, and I'm gonna miss you more than you'll ever know." What was she saying? I hung on to my wheel for dear life.
You see, it's really Miss Brisbane's class. But just before school started, her husband was in an accident, so I took over the class. Today, she's coming back for good. Good? I could see nothing good in what Miss Mack was saying.
Besides, I want to see the world, Humphrey, she told me. Fine with me. I've thoroughly enjoyed all the world I've seen so far and would go to the ends of the earth with Mrs. Mack. But she wasn't finished yet. But I can't take you with me. All hopes completely dashed. Besides, the kids need you to teach them responsibility. Miss Brisbane needs you too.
Unfortunately, she didn't tell Miss Brisbane that. Miss Brisbane was already in room 26 when we arrived. She smiled at Miss Mack and shook her hand. Then she frowned at me and said, "Is that some kind of rodent?"
Miss Mack gave her the speech about how kids can learn from taking care of another species. Mrs. Brisbane looked horrified and said, "I can't stand rodents. Take it back."
The it she was talking about was me. Miss Mack didn't bat an eyelash. She put my cage in its usual place next to the window and said the kids were already very attached to me. She attached Dr. Harvey H. Hammer's Guide to the Care and Feeding of Hamsters to the cage, along with a chart to make sure I was fed and my cage was cleaned on time.
The children know what to do. You won't have to do a thing, Mrs. Mack said as Mrs. Brisbane glared at me. Just then, my fellow students came streaming into the room, and within half an hour, Mrs. Mack had said goodbye to everyone, including me. "I'll never forget you, Humphrey," she whispered. "Don't you forget me either."
Not likely, but I don't know if I can ever forgive you, I squeaked. And then she was gone, without me. Miss Brisbane didn't even come close to my cage until recess. Then she walked over and said, "Mister, you've got to go."
But she doesn't know my secret. The latch on my cage door doesn't work. It never has. It's the lock that doesn't lock. So I've got news for Miss Brisbane. If I've got to go, it will be when and where I decide to go, not her. Meanwhile, I'm not turning my back on this woman, not for a second. If I ever disappear and someone finds this notebook, just check out Miss Brisbane. Please.
Tip 1, choose your new hamster's home very carefully and make sure it's secure. Hamsters are skillful escape artists, and once out of their cages, they are very difficult to find. From the Guide to the Care and Feeding of Hamsters.
One last little thing. When you post your Padlet, mine popped up immediately. Yours is not going to pop up immediately because we have it so that we have to approve it
Yes.
before it goes out for everyone. So do not stress out when you get done with yours that it does not immediately pop up. It is okay. As soon as we have just a minute, we'll get yours approved and yours will appear on the board. So check back in later today to look for all the ones your friends have posted.
Can't wait to see your connections. Have fun.
Get to work.